Moving abroad is supposed to change your life. That's what everyone says. New opportunities, fresh start, become the person you always wanted to be. I believed all of that. What they don't tell you is how many versions of yourself you'll lose along the way. I left everything behind 3 years ago. Not because I wanted some grand adventure, but because staying felt like watching my future shrink in real time. The job market back home was a joke. My degree was useless. Every opportunity required 5 years of experience for entry-level positions. You know the drill. So I made the decision that millions of people make every year. I bought a one-way ticket and convinced myself it would all work out. Spoiler alert, it didn't work out, at least not the way I imagined. The first month felt like being dropped into a video game on the hardest difficulty setting with no tutorial. Everything that was automatic back home suddenly required intense concentration. Buying groceries became a 30-minute ordeal. I'd stand in the aisle holding two nearly identical products, trying to decode which one was actually what I needed. The cashier spoke too fast. I nodded and smiled like an idiot, hoping I wasn't accidentally agreeing to something weird. Public transportation turned into a daily puzzle. I missed my stop constantly because I couldn't understand the announcements. Google Maps became my best friend and worst enemy. It would confidently lead me to the right street, then abandon me at the exact moment I needed to figure out which unmarked building was my destination. I walked past my own apartment 4 times on the first day. But the language barrier wasn't even the hardest part. That honor goes to loneliness, the kind that sits in your chest like a rock. Back home, I had friends I'd known since childhood. We'd grab coffee without planning it. Someone was always around. I took that for granted. Here, making friends felt like trying to join a game of jump rope that never stopped spinning. Everyone already had their groups, their inside jokes, their history. I was the outsider trying to figure out when to jump in. I tried everything. Language exchange meetups where people smiled politely and never texted back. Joining a gym where I'd awkwardly lift weights next to the same people every day without ever speaking. Downloaded every friendship app that exists. Turns out, looking for friends as an adult abroad makes you sound either desperate or suspicious. Maybe both. Work was its own special nightmare. My qualifications from home meant almost nothing here. That bachelor's degree I spent 4 years earning, apparently worthless without local certification. The experience I did have? Not relevant because I didn't have experience in their specific system. It's a perfect loop of rejection. I applied to 73 jobs in the first 2 months. I know because I kept a spreadsheet. Heard back from 12. Got 3 interviews, 0 offers. Eventually, I took a job I was overqualified for, working with people half my age who treated me like I was their age. My boss was 24 and kept calling me buddy. I have a master's degree. I was making less than I made as a teenager back home. The money situation became genuinely scary. Rent ate half my paycheck. Food took another chunk. I had to budget for toilet paper, actually sit down and calculate if I could afford the nicer brand or if I needed to go cheaper. That's the kind of thing that makes you question your entire life. I'd video call my family and lie about how great everything was. They were so proud of me for being brave enough to leave. How could I tell them I was eating pasta with butter for the 4th night in a row because it was all I could afford? That I'd spent the previous evening crying in the shower because I felt so completely alone? You can't admit that without sounding like you failed. The worst part was the doubt. That voice in my head asking if I'd made a massive mistake, if I should just admit defeat and go home. But going back felt like failure too. Like proving everyone who said I shouldn't go was right all along. So I stayed. Stuck between a home that no longer felt like mine and a new place that wouldn't let me in. What I didn't know then was that this feeling, this impossible stuck-in-between space, was actually the beginning of something. Not the inspiring kind of beginning you see in movies, but the messy kind where you have no idea you're changing until you look back months later. The change happened so gradually, I didn't notice it. Like how you don't see yourself aging until you look at an old photo and realize you're a completely different person. Month 3, I stopped comparing everything to home. The grocery store didn't feel foreign anymore. I knew which aisles had what. I had a favorite checkout person, small things, but they mattered. Month 4, I had my first real conversation with a neighbor. Not the polite nods we'd been exchanging, but an actual 20-minute chat about nothing important. Her dog had eaten something weird. My sink was leaking. Normal stuff. It felt revolutionary. Work stopped being torture and became just annoying. My boss still called me buddy, but I'd learned he called everyone that. The pay still sucked, but I found a side gig tutoring English online. Not glamorous, but it meant I could buy name brand toilet paper without checking my bank account first. The loneliness shifted too. It didn't disappear. That would be a lie, but it became less sharp, less constant. I started going to this cafe every Saturday morning. Same table, same order. The barista learned my name, started making my coffee before I asked. One Saturday, she introduced me to another regular. We talked for 3 hours. That's how I met my first real friend here, not through some app or organized meetup, but because we both liked overpriced lattes and showed up at the same place every week. She introduced me to her friends. Suddenly, I had plans on weekends, nothing crazy. Dinner at someone's apartment, hiking, movie nights where half the film went over my head because of local references I didn't understand. But they'd explain and we'd laugh, and it felt like belonging. By month 7, something weird happened. I went home to visit. Everyone was exactly the same. Same conversations, same jokes, same complaints about the same things. My best friend from childhood spent an hour telling me about drama at her job that I couldn't follow because I didn't know any of the people involved. I smiled and nodded and felt like a stranger. My mom made my favorite meal. It tasted different. Not bad, just not how I remembered. Maybe she changed the recipe. Maybe my taste buds had adjusted to different food. Either way, it wasn't home anymore. I realized I'd been speaking with an accent. Not the local accent from where I moved, but this weird hybrid that wasn't quite either place. My family kept asking me to repeat things, said I talked different now, the worst part. I was relieved when my flight back arrived. I'd started calling my new place back without realizing it. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just moved countries, I'd become someone who existed between two worlds, not fully belonging to either, but carrying pieces of both. My apartment didn't feel temporary anymore. I'd hung pictures, bought real furniture instead of the cheap stuff you get when you think you might leave any second. I had routines, favorite restaurants, a doctor I trusted, a hairstylist who knew how I liked my cut. The job situation finally broke through. A position opened up that actually matched my qualifications. The interview went well because I understood how things worked here now. The cultural gaps I'd struggled with before had closed. I got the offer, actual career-level pay, respect, a boss who didn't call me buddy. Year 2 hit, and I stopped counting months. I still miss things from home, the specific brand of chips they don't sell here. How much easier small talk used to be, my niece growing up in photos instead of in person, but I also can't imagine leaving. This place broke me down and built me back up into someone I actually like better, someone braver, more adaptable, less afraid of being uncomfortable because I've survived worse than discomfort. People ask if it was worth it, moving, starting over, all that struggle. I think about that spreadsheet of rejections, the pasta with butter dinners, crying in the shower, the crushing loneliness that felt like it would swallow me whole. Then I think about who I was before and who I am now. Different question entirely. It wasn't about worth it, it was about becoming someone who could survive anywhere, someone who chose difficulty and came out stronger. That person didn't exist before I left. So yeah, it was worth it. The thing is, nobody tells you the truth about moving abroad because the truth sounds like complaining. It sounds ungrateful. You chose this, right? You wanted adventure. You got it. But here's what I wish someone had told me before I bought that one-way ticket. You won't just change locations. You'll change completely. The person who left isn't the person who stays. You'll lose parts of yourself you didn't know you were attached to. Your sense of humor won't translate. Your references will fall flat. You'll forget words in your native language and remember them in your new one. You'll also gain things you never knew you needed. Resilience that comes from figuring out how to exist when everything is hard. Confidence from surviving your worst days in a place where nobody was coming to save you. The ability to start over, which is a superpower most people never develop. Moving abroad isn't a solution to your problems. It's trading familiar problems for foreign ones. The difference is, the foreign ones force you to grow in ways staying comfortable never would. You either adapt or you break. I almost broke, but I adapted. And now when people ask if I do it again, knowing everything I know now, I tell them the truth.